Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Banter. I'm Paddy Murphy.
And I'm Barry Fahey.
And we're going to introduce you to our lovely guests in a few moments. But to begin with, we're just going to run through a few bits of shout-outs and housekeeping and all that jazz you're getting so accustomed to. When we have sponsors, this will be so much worse because there'll be like 4 minutes dedicated just to sponsors at the start of the show. So if you want sponsorship...
Hit us up.
Yeah.
You can reach us easily on Patreon.
give us money. So the first thing we'd like to talk about is our close friend. Actually, I'll let you give this shout out, Baz, about what Nick's got in store for people on the 31st.
Yeah, our good friend Nicholas Vince of Chatter fame is launching his directorial debut on Real House, I think it is. Real
House video on demand service.
Yeah, for VOD on the 31st of October. So Halloween night, you'll get to see The Night Whispered. And
at the moment, there is an offer on where if you pre-order it now, you can pre-order it for like £1.49 or £1.59, and that will guarantee you get a copy of the film at release, and it's about 30% off the full price, which is like $2.49.
Yeah.
And there are other cool packages like with the making of featurette and a bunch of other stuff. So head over to realhouse.com, search for The Night Whispered, or go to Nick's various Facebook pages. He has like 16,000 of them, and check it out. And
it stars Nicholas himself and Dawson James.
And I'm terrible because I don't know the name of the two actresses.
I also don't know the name of the two actresses.
That's
I
terrible.
Apologise. Sorry.
We are sexist pigs, alright?
Well, I've only ever worked with Nick.
I know, and Dawson, that's what it is. And Bertie's in it too.
Bertie, yeah. I've never worked with Bertie, but someday.
Someday. That's the dream for all of us, I think.
We're only working with Nick to get to Bertie.
The next thing we just wanted to talk about... The next thing I wanted to bring up is one that you brought to my attention, which is just we want to say a big congratulations to another Badger friend, Mark Logan, who is part of the For We Are Many project, as we are with our short intervention, and Nick is with his short Necessary Evils.
Yeah.
Mark Logan's contribution is called Father, and it looks, from the BTS stills I've seen so far, dark as all hell.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see it. Like the stills kind of give you that sense of like
a good tease.
Yeah, a good tease. I really want to know where this is going and
the special effects makeup looks amazing in it. Yet again, I know Mark loves to put out special effects makeup shots, and Mike always hates it. Mike's always like, stop putting out makeup shots. But he released one. You can check it out again on the For We Are Many Facebook page. There's stills for all the various shorts that are going to be part of that anthology, which is by Hex Media.
There's actually a couple of ones in there that the stills look amazing. I'm really intrigued.
I don't know how much about this I'm allowed to say, but Laurie sent me stills from one. I don't know the name of it, so maybe I'll get away with it based on that. They made a full latex suit for their creature. It looks amazing. He had a bungee rope attached to him and was diving 20 feet out of trees and stuff. What? Into lakes and like all this crazy stuff, and I was like, well, I don't feel intimidated at all. Like, we have Jess Mess looking like Padme Amidala from Star Wars. But no, huge congrats to Mark. Him and his team are killing it. They had worked with Lawrence Harvey again, who is just, I think that's going to be Mark's thing. Mark and Lawrence have just this great chemistry. And the last shout out for other people, then we'll get to our own stuff, is for Deadline Miami, which is we on our very first podcast, I believe we mentioned it. We couldn't think of the name of it, if I remember.
Yeah, it was either the first or second one. I can't remember.
It was Brian and Bex.
Okay, so it was the first one.
It's a horror graphic novel comic, and it stars, like, the lead character in it is based on our good friend Gigi Saul Guerrero. And it's got cameos from other kind of horror icons like Tristan Risk and Ellie Church. So I have seen a preview of this comic.
I'm so jealous.
And it's awesome. So that is also available for pre-order. I'm not sure where specifically, but if you search Deadline Miami, I mean, everyone's got Google. Deadline Miami. You can pre-order it, and our pre-order is open on the 31st of October. Sorry. My bad. You can't pre-order it now. But actually, by the time this podcast is out, you probably can. Because we're currently recording on the 21st... 22nd.
Either the 21st or the 22nd.
It's the 22nd of October today.
It is the 22nd.
So just in case we say something, you're like, hey, that's weird. That's why. So yeah, huge shout out by that. It's going to be really cool. You should definitely check it out. For our own stuff, the Three Don'ts is available right now at
the3don'ts.com.
Can't get that wrong. Although it's not a numerical 3, it's THREE. Just be aware.
Yeah, and it also doesn't have the apostrophe because you can't put an apostrophe in
a website.
in a website address.
Now it's available for pre-order. There's currently a sale on where if you pre-order early, you get the Blu-ray for €25 and the DVD for €15.
Mm-hmm.
As of about the 15th of November, that's going to be going back up to €20 for the DVD and $30 for the Blu-ray. So if you want to get that early discount, get buying now. They're selling pretty fast.
Yeah, and it's just good to note as well that the DVD is the full-length feature film, an hour-long featurette, bloopers, deleted scenes, and
commentary,
director's commentary,
subtitles for anybody who's going to be like, I can't understand these crazy Irish people. So yeah, that is available. Check it out. We're really proud of what we've done with that movie, and Hex Media are going to be doing a digital release later in the year, early next year. But this is your chance to get to possibly see it before anybody else. It's well worth checking out. And
as Paddy mentioned, it is limited to 100 copies of each Blu-ray DVD, and they are moving pretty quick. So
scarily quick. I haven't bought one yet. And I'm like, I don't want to miss out on not buying my own movie.
I know.
So the next one is just Retribution, which I'll let you spiel off.
Yeah, Retribution, our 15-minute neo-noir revenge thriller.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Nice. Retribution is available on VOD, on Real House, and on Amazon Video Direct. So I guess when we put it up, we can put a link to that as well if anyone hasn't seen that. Is there a trailer?
There's a trailer up on that, yeah?
Yeah, there is a trailer up on the Celtic Banter YouTube page as well, so you can get a taste for it. But and
it's also on Real House. As soon as you land there, the first thing you're going to see, and same with Amazon, is that trailer. It stars Nick Vince, who we've mentioned so much, and Adam Moylan, who's also in the Three Don'ts, amongst some other great people, Nigel Mercier and Graham Gill. And it's very violent and very good, I hope. It's not just violent for the sake of violence. I really hope that people, I've heard a few people who've seen the film have said, I understand why the violence was there.
Yeah, and there's one particular scene that everyone talks about after the film.
Yeah.
And
but it's very, without getting too into it, because that's a whole separate podcast, but one of the big things for me with that film was I wanted to make people question their own love of violence. People do naturally have this kind of oh, that was so cool. But I think a lot of people who've watched Retribution came to me and said, I was kind of cheering, and then I was kind of repulsed at myself for cheering, and I'm like, well, it worked then. Awesome. So that's, and then obviously our last thing is just our Patreon, which if you're seeing this, you're seeing it before everybody else because you're our beloved patrons.
We love you more than everyone else.
Yeah, all the other people that are just checking this out on YouTube, they're okay, I guess.
We still appreciate it, but
But they're not giving us money. You're our bosses. Yeah. Think about it like that, patrons. You own us.
Patrons get everything before the general public. So if you want, and they also get exclusives, things that will never go public.
For example, the Three Don'ts. When we did announce that the Blu-ray and DVD went live, there was an exclusive discount code for patrons that nobody else got.
On top of the current
sale. Yeah. So that there are really good perks to be. I mean, for £3 a month, there are perks that can save you a lot more than that on our content. So if you like it and you're going to buy it anyway, possibly, you should be a patron.
I agree.
And that leads us. We're done with all that.
That concludes the. Excuse me. That concludes the business side.
So to jump into, we're going to introduce our guests.
Yes.
And these guests come from somewhere they come from a long time ago in a galaxy far from... No, sorry.
That was
the US. Sorry, yeah. They come from the United States of America. And I'll get into why they're here in a bit. But to introduce, to my left is the wonderful Stephen Gerard Farrell.
Hello, Daddy.
Acclaimed Irish-American novelist and playwright and teacher and all kinds of stuff. An actor, and he lied. He was such an actor. And yeah, so
excellent. And to my left, we have the beautiful, talented teacher and actress Rachel Cobb.
Hello.
Yeah. One half of the Cobb twins.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later.
So basically, Rachel and Stephen are here because yesterday, today, we're recording this on a Sunday 22nd, and yesterday we filmed a kind of a bookend segment for a short we're doing based on one of Stephen's books called Mersey Boys. It was actually how me and Stephen first got in contact, is because, well, there's another reason, which is that we're both Badgers. Yeah. But definitely Mersey Boys has been a driving force in why this has happened, why you're in Ireland recording this podcast with some crazy but yeah, so it was amazing to get the opportunity. The way Mersey Boys is working is we're shooting the scene we shot yesterday with you guys is a present day scene, and the characters you guys are playing are an uncle and niece. And then the stuff we're shooting next week takes place in the 1960s, the swinging 60s. And we've got some great talent lined up for that shoot as well. And I know when I showed you some of the cast list, I
was blown away, really.
It was great because we had a long day that Friday. You were so jet lagged, you were so tired, and just when I showed you some of the cast, you woke up.
I went to bed a happy man. I really did.
I mean, you had known about Fake and Jess,
yes,
and Graham, and I mean, it had never been confirmed about Mikey because of the issue with his braces. But I think when you got to see Owen, who's playing John, and Mikey, who's playing Paul, I think you lost your mind. It was great.
That audition, it was hysterical. For
anyone who missed the beginning, Mersey Boys is a story that we should summarise.
It's actually, I think you're the best man to summarise it. If anyone can explain what Mersey Boys is.
Well, Mersey Boys is about the Beatles, of course, and I think many people still love the Beatles, even though it's been many years now, 50 years. So I always imagine, what about if there was a character like me who had gone to Liverpool right when they were starting, and he was there and he saw them from the beginning right to the point when they launched and became big. What about, how would I interact with them? How would I get along with John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, etc.?
Yeah, I think that was, I've said this to you before, but my biggest attraction to the story is not necessarily the Beatles. I mean, obviously, my mother imbued me an incredible love for the Beatles. I think it was, what was the album? Do you remember in the late 90s they released updated, or was it early 2000s? It was like, was it just called Love or something like that? But it was like an updated 2-disc set of like all the Beatles songs remastered. And my mother got it for me for Christmas, and she was just like, you listen to that every day and you appreciate good music.
Nice.
And I'd never really been into them that much beforehand. But then songs like Lady Madonna, and I was just like, oh my God, listen to that piano. Gee, this is incredible. But yeah, it wasn't, my draw wasn't, it was originally, this is a Beatles story, I'm going to read this. But once I read it, I went, what's so much cooler about this is the perspective of it. That it's, I think everybody has that. I've met people who have, I knew this guy, and he was, me and him dated, and then he got really successful, and got on a big Irish TV show, and then he got a really big ego. That was me. Not the guy with the ego. I dated some guy who got on Irish TV. No, but I just think that perspective is so fresh, because usually when you see a biopic type thing, it's always from the perspective of the band or the individual, and with that comes a lot of, we can't portray this, or we can't do that, or we have to portray this, or we have to portray that. And what I like is with your story, you're not seeing that idea of the Beatles. You're seeing what somebody ground level, I guess. On watching them take off into the stratosphere.
Another thing about it too was that right before I started working on the book, I actually had gone to Liverpool, and I really loved Liverpool. Something about the city just kind of resonated with me. And it's a foggy port town, and, I walked the streets, and every once in a while I would come across a site that was Beatle connected, like the
Cavern Club, yeah.
Exactly. And the place I actually stayed in, the B&B, was right across the street from the office where John Lennon and Cynthia Lennon got married.
Oh, wow.
And then right next to it was a pub, and that's where they had their wedding reception. So, of course, I had to go into
And John had probably far too many pints.
Probably too many pints. So I actually had to go in there and have far too many pints myself.
You just had to recreate it. You lived in the moment of being John Lennon, I guess.
And Liverpool, in many ways, kind of reminded me of Chicago for some reason. Very blue-collar, working class, gritty city, but the people are very friendly once you get to know them.
Interesting question about that, I guess, is I've been to Liverpool as well. My brother was a huge supporter of Liverpool Football Club. Growing up, it was beaten into me that I had to be a supporter of Liverpool Football Club. And so I guess deep down, even though I don't watch football or anything, I still feel like a Liverpool Football Club supporter, even though I don't watch it or anything.
Sorry.
I know. It's not a good feeling. It's like, I feel like, beating myself. But yeah, like, we went over a bunch of times when I was younger and even more recently, and it feels so much like Ireland to me.
Yeah.
It feels, and from everything I've heard about Chicago, yet again, probably a lot of Irish, people settle in Chicago.
Yeah,
and that kind of
correct.
working collar, blue collar, blue collar ethic, I think, is a very Irish immigrant tradition. We'll come in and we'll do all your labour for you. We'll work so hard. We'll be the hardest workers you guys ever have, and that's what I got from like Liverpool was.
And in the book, Al Moran, who's the American who's based on me, he's American, very American, but he's also Irish American, very proud of his Irish ancestry. And then he connects with John Lennon, who's English, but his ancestors were
Irish as well.
And so they connect on that level sometimes, but then at other times they clash, America against England, but then sometimes they connect Irish. And they both could be kind of nasty people towards each other, but they had this deep level understanding of each other.
Respect.
And respect. And at one point, though, Al is much higher than John because Al is the professor and John is the student.
Yeah.
And then as time goes on, you can see John going ahead of Al. And Al doesn't really like it too much because he's used to being the mentor, the big shot.
The guy, yeah.
And then suddenly, John is way up there, and Al is no longer there. And he doesn't know how to handle it. Should he become bitter? Should he just hold on to the memory? Should he just move on? Yeah.
And that is it's something that, I don't know, that story can move throughout the time. It's not just the Beatles,
Yeah.
It's how do you handle other people's success? Do you let it affect you? Do you let it get you down? Do you have it inspire you?
Yeah.
It was interesting because when I was going to draft the short screenplay for the short film, I knew I wanted John to come across, because I've watched a lot of interviews with John, I've read a lot of interviews with him, and I knew I wanted him, especially in that era in the early 1960s, I knew I wanted him to come across as arrogant, and I knew I wanted him to come across as brash, but I didn't want him to come across as unlikable.
Yeah.
That was the hardest balance when writing that short screenplay was to have him say things that were like, you were like, oh, you cheeky sod.
Yeah.
But not like, oh, I hate him, he's so...
Too obnoxious,
Yeah, I loved watching interviews and stuff with him. He was very much a straight shooter. If he felt something, he said it. There was no pause button in his head that would go, maybe you shouldn't say that, John. You might upset people.
And with John Lennon, too, I think he had to fight back once in a while.
Yeah.
If you let him make you victim, he would continue. So after a while, you would learn to fight him back, and he would respect you for that. And I think Paul, George, and Ringo had to learn that there's a certain point, no, John, you can't say that. And push him back. And
I think that maybe that's where, I think him and Paul had that relationship where it was like him and Paul were able to do that, but at the same time, that may be why they drifted as far as they did, is because they kind of pushed too far eventually, and it was like, well, this is irreparable.
Exactly.
But Sorry, so that's what we're doing. That's why we're here this weekend.
That's why, yeah. That's why
and so, Rachel.
Well, I guess Rachel, if you would like to talk a little bit about how you came on board, how you know Stephen, and go from there.
Sure. Well, Steve and I are colleagues. We both work and teach at the same college back in the States.
What's the name of the college?
It's called Greenville Technical College, Greenville, South Carolina. And we're both in the communication department, speech communication. So I met you almost 3.5 years ago when I got hired on there full time. And we both teach public speaking, but we're the ones who teach the interpersonal class. So some of the other communication classes they offer. So we've been colleagues. We have offices on the opposite hallways, but we cross paths. And so throughout those 3.5 years, we just he's had readings that he's done to promote his books and things like that. So then eventually he was telling me the story of meeting you, Patty, and how he got connected to Celtic Badger.
Which we will get into.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah.
That's a great story.
It is such a great story. Such a great story. And just, I was kind of following along as Steve would talk about it. And eventually it led to this project. And initially Steve was, just so excited about coming to Ireland. He just there's a whole group of people who wanted to come. So it was going to be a whole group.
No way.
And for various reasons, nobody else could come. And it just, the way everything kind of worked out, I was like, yeah, I'll come along. I'll be supportive. But then he's like, well, there's this little small role. Do you want to do this? And I thought that would be an interesting experience. I'm always looking for those new opportunities just to try something new. And so here I am.
Halfway across.
Yep.
And kind of getting into that, I guess. So, but you had previous acting experience.
Yes, my college and grad school education was all in performance studies. So most of my acting experience has been stage experience. Some plays. Both of my degrees, the required project was a one-man show. So I've done a couple one-man shows, and so I dabble here and there.
Yeah.
When little things arise and I can fit it in, then I'll do it. And so this fit in. I was like, it's Ireland, I'll make it fit in.
Luckily for us, it fit.
Exactly. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, Rachel was in a play called The Macbeth of the Mind, and took the Macbeth play and it narrowed it down to about a 45-minute play.
It was an ensemble cast, so there were 5 of us playing all of the different characters. Wow. So it was very much a kind of experimental, limited props and costumes to really create that sense of Macbeth and the whole story in the minds of the audience. And
that sounds really
it was really
amazing.
fun.
It's always such a, I don't know, I always find that like people get really temperamental if you want to mess with Shakespeare stuff normally.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, we're going to take the Shakespeare thing and we're going to do something kind of different with it, it's like, excuse me?
Yes.
What? That's Shakespeare. You're not messing with nothing, buddy.
Right.
And then I always find that 9 times out of 10 with Shakespeare stuff, if it's taken and done differently, it's I'm not going to say so much better, but it's such a different perspective.
Yeah,
again.
it's entertaining.
Like,
yeah.
I grew up and I was quite a pretentious youth and I loved Shakespeare stuff. I would wear my beret and my, my
part of that doesn't surprise
I can
me.
imagine. Yeah, I'm not as bad anymore. I was really bad. But when I saw Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, I was like, oh my god, this is Shakespeare done cool. Like, this is Shakespeare done really cool. Why isn't that more of this? Yeah. And then you realise that everything kind of is. Because, like, The Lion King is basically, Macbeth. Is it Hamlet?
Hamlet,
yeah. But it's pretty amazing. Like, Macbeth in, like, a 45-minute...
Yes. Just cut down just the essentials. Yeah, the essentials.
That's really cool. Is it Macbeth? Were you allowed to say the name of the show?
We did, but we didn't. Well, there was a lot of talk about the Scottish play, and a lot of talk about we shouldn't be saying this in the theater. Yeah.
It's such a big thing.
Yeah.
I remember all the way through the production of the film, the movie with Fassbender, it was called The Scottish. Posters came out for it that said The Scottish. And part of me was like, it'd be really cool if they left the title The Scottish.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really... And then when they changed the names of Macbeth and Elise, I was like, you had such a cool shot to it. Because I know so many people who didn't see that because they were like, oh, it's Shakespeare, I'm not into Shakespeare. And I'm like... If you had seen this, you would have loved it. It's amazing.
I remember this might be quite a while ago, but if you remember Extravisions.
Yes, I do. They were like Blockbuster Video in the States.
It's similar to Blockbuster.
Okay.
We're actually the same company because I worked for Extravision.
Oh, really?
They were a subsidiary of Blockbuster.
I didn't know that. There you go. You trumped my fact.
No.
Me and Vashan used to regularly go into Extravision and we would rent movies and stuff that we hadn't seen. And I remember one day coming across a DVD that was just titled Macbeth, and I was like, that looks interesting because it was a guy in the front. He was in like a slick suit.
Oh wow!
And I was like, what is this? And I kind of took it out and I read the summary, and it was basically the story of Macbeth, but instead of being like about the Scottish and the military and the army, it was about
like a lawyer.
It was like a gang, and Macbeth was like the hired hand who was convinced by his mistress or whatever that he should be the leader of the gang.
Okay.
And I was like, this is a great idea. I was like, I want to see how this plays out. And then, unfortunately, I went to watch it, and they kept the Old English language, so it was actually the Shakespearean dialogue that happened to tell the modern story. And I was like,
that worked so well in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Yes,
but I don't know why.
But that was because they still kind of.
But like I don't know how Baz Luhrmann did it in Romeo and Juliet, because I would be the same. I'd be like, why are you still in the old dialect? But it was the fact that it was just handled so well. Like there's this part in that movie where John Leguizamo, I can't remember the character he plays in it. It's the brother of Juliet, who's
Steve.
But when he's like, hand me my blade or whatever, hand me my sword, and it's like there's a shotgun on like the thing in the limo, and it's like thy blade written on the side of the shotgun. And I was like, that's so clever, that's genius.
I think because of the way it was laid out on the box and stuff like that, and it was
thought
such
it wasn't
a modern
going to
story. I was like, if you take all that elements and retell it as Macbeth that way, it was like I was super into it, and then it was like.
Actually, the one you were in
quite hit home the way I wanted it to.
The one you were in, Rachel, was that done in the old Shakespearean language, or was it kind of?
It was the shit. Well, for the most part, I think every once in a while a line wouldn't be quite, and that was in rehearsal sometimes. Like, I'm such a purist when it comes to that. I was like, no, this is Shakespeare. You can't either. It's going to be a modified version, different script, but the story, or you got to say Shakespeare's words in the way that he wrote it. I was just like,
exactly.
But that was the intent. Yeah.
But that's interesting enough, I guess, from working with you guys yesterday. I'm going to say it again here. It's something Joe Lynch says, which is that if you're on set and you feel like a useless director, you're doing really good because your actors are really good.
Yeah.
And that describes yesterday's shoot to me really well. And that's not a derogatory thing about myself, because it just was one of those shoots where I did not feel that I had to do anything.
Yeah.
Which is great, because I'm lazy. No, but it's amazing when you can have that trust, and when you can see someone and go, as I said to you guys in the car last night, not need to overdirect, not need to go, oh well, I'm just going to chime in for the sake of it now, like I was very, if there was something I'd say it to you guys, but 9 times out of 10 it was just knocked out of the park. It was usually focus or something.
Yeah, actually that was true. There was a lot of issues.
But it was because you moved from
I was kept jumping from the 35 to the 50, and the focus ring is
this
backwards
way on
one, and then it's the right way on the other. So it's like I kept going the wrong direction after changing lenses.
And then even though we're really close now, I still was really uncomfortable going, like, I think you heard it once or twice where I was like, was there a slight focus issue in that one? And you were like, yeah.
I was going to ask for another one anyway.
I know.
Because it'd only annoy me when I see it later. I'm like, it's not in focus.
So, I mean, for you guys, obviously, you wrote the original story, Mersey Boys, the novel, and the screenplay, and the stage play, and a kind of separate adaptation, almost like a separate story called Liverpool Road, which is kind of influenced but not the same story. And Rachel, like, you came over and you've taken part in this. Like, how was that experience for you guys to come?
For me, it's fantastic. I think yesterday was one of the best days of my life, maybe the best. Because I've never actually done any film work, so it was just fun being in a film. But it was my film, something influenced by me, but it was really possible because of the way we felt. You know, we were treated with such kindness by Barry's mom. And everybody who worked with us was so much fun. It was just fun. Even when we had the long breaks, when the guys were setting the cameras up, changing things, we all sat around, talked, drank tea. It was just a lot of fun. It was almost kind of like a dream come true. Then we finished up with the pizza, so that...
Yeah.
If you end your day with pizza, you've had a good day.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Il Porchetto.
One thing that I thought, too, was that since Rachel and I both are professors, we're always telling our students, this is how you could improve something, but they never listen to it.
Yeah.
Whereas with you told us what you wanted, so we were going to do it. We were going to actually follow your directions. This is what we're going to do.
It was an interesting one because I've worked with some people, and this is not a negative thing to say. Like, it's not. Some people are some people who come from a very trained background, who have done a lot of film, like a huge amount of film work, get very almost upset or possibly threatened when you're like, oh, we're going to do it different here. They're like, what? No, but this is what I learned. Like, what do you mean we're going to do this different? And it becomes like, and I completely understand that. Even when I have found myself in that situation, I try to take that actor aside and give them a lot of time and explain the why and what and everything. What I found great was like when you guys arrived to set, and I'm like to Rachel, I'm like, okay, I know that in the script you basically like it's basically one line that you shout out, and then that's kind of it. But I'm like, I need you to do this, and I need you to do that, and I went through like a bunch of kind of directions, and you were just like, yeah, no problem, no problem.
Got it.
And then, it was that theatre background, I think, as well, that like I say it every time I work with somebody who has a big theatre background. Body language and body direction is always just on point.
Yeah.
Like. It blows me away every time because, you know, when you came in, you shake your umbrella off or whatever it was. I was like, every single time the exact same, like how same height off the ground. If you were cutting those two together, it wouldn't be like a jump cut. It would be the exact same motion.
You could probably overlay them at 50% opacity and it would look the same.
Wow.
I was just watching from my monitor, like looking out into the hall, just like. So
well, it was kind of funny too because in the original script she only had one line.
Yeah.
And so I asked you, could we get Rachel more lines? And you go, well, Steve, it's pretty well set up already. We're pretty tight now. Because I was wondering if you thought, well, Rachel was just kind of this friend I dragged along and probably couldn't act. But then I kept on saying, no, she knows how to act. She really does. She's been in play.
It was, the very first time you asked me, I came back with a response of very like, I was like, well, look, I can't justify just adding lines for no reason.
Yeah.
And that's what happens very organically on a lot of our shoots is that when we arrived there and like the day was really windy, right? And it was really blustery. And it was like, well, if all these pieces started to come together, it explained the setup. And when that happens, that's when you start to go, okay, I've got more for you here because we've, this is expanded now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I still hold true to that belief that you should never just add lines for the sake of it.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason.
Rachel was a trooper about it, but she did tease me a couple of weeks ago. She goes, well, I'm going all across the Atlantic for one line. And I go, I have a feeling once we get over there and Paddy sees you, and he's a pretty laid-back guy, I'm sure you'll get more lines.
I'm like a stern. I'm not laid back at all. I'm like the most serious person.
Watch any of the previous podcasts.
In fact, yesterday when we were driving around and you told us, you said to Rachel, I'm probably going to add these scenes with you in, not scenes, but shots.
Yeah.
And give you more lines. And I kind of tapped her and said, see, I told you.
I would have been fine with just the one.
Well, it's something that comes up time and time again on shoots, and I've had to say to a few people, is when I get people that say, oh, but this is a small role that I'm in, and I'm like, it's a cliche, but it's true. There are no small roles, only small people. I only say that to Tubbs.
Yeah.
That's only because
it's a lot more literal.
And that's only because he's 4'7".
Someday we'll have a podcast where we don't mention Tubbs.
No, I don't want to live in a world where that's a thing.
So I guess if we jump back a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about the story of how you came in contact with Paddy and Celtic Badger Media and that whole story, because again, I experienced it from our end, and I'm just super interested to hear it from your perspective.
Actually, I just set up my own domain about 2 years ago, Celtic Badger Publisher, and I handle my own stuff. I publish my own books, my own stories, and my speaking presentations, etc. And one time, right at the beginning, I keyed in Celtic Badger, and your Celtic Badger popped up. And I thought, oh, with the sword, I go, hey, this is so cool. But then the fact that they were from Ireland, I go, I can't believe it. What is the possibilities here? So I emailed Paddy, and I said something like, I think it's great that we have the same name. But that's all I meant, I'm glad that you have your Celtic Badgers like me. How did you come up with that name?
It's funny because, like, in an email, you don't have
context.
You don't have a tone of voice.
Yeah.
You don't have context. So I remember you telling me when that email came in, you were like, "Oh my God, there's another guy called Celtic Badger." It's like, I'm going to respond and I'm going to tell him that we registered the domain and we have the business. And immediately got to can he sue us? He can't sue us. It's like,
I can't even remember what I messaged you back, but it was something like a really defensive message.
Yeah. And right away I offered you a peace offering. I said, well, I wrote this book, Mersey Boys. I'd like to send you a copy. And then I think at that point you realized I did.
It was just the initial contact. It was fear, I guess.
Yeah.
It was just like, I was like, is this guy trying to take Celtic Badger away from us?
Going back to the tone of voice thing, there's a difference between, hey, we have the same name, and hey,
we have the same name. Yeah.
And I was wondering how you came up with it, because in my case, Celtic, well, I have Irish ancestry, and I'm from the state of Wisconsin, and they call people from Wisconsin Badgers. And our college football team that are Wisconsin Badgers, so I just combined them together, Celtic and Badger.
That's
something that's really weird to me, though. Is I've spoken to a bunch of people from the US, people from Canada, and whenever I talk about badgers, they're like, "You mean like a honey badger?" And I'm like, "No, like a badger." And they're like, "What's like a honey badger?" And I'm like, "No, like not the honey badger type, the regular badger." And they're like, "What is that?" And I'm like, you don't have badgers? Like, how do you live life? But I didn't know that there was the common badger in the United States.
Well, I actually think it came from the Welsh coal miners who went to Wisconsin and they were digging for whatever they were, tin, I think.
Yeah.
And people called them badgers.
Yeah.
And so that's why they took it. I don't think it's actually because we have the
actual
badger.
Animals.
That's really
That's way better than my story.
Actually, we haven't. Yeah, I was just gonna say we haven't actually talked on the podcast about how we came up with Celtic Badger Media.
That's because it's a rubbish story.
Well, it's not. If you want to bring a background.
I want to go all the way back with it though.
Okay,
I never do that. In 2010, I was setting up a video game company with a bunch of friends of mine, and we had to come up with a game idea for our first game. And I have always had an obsession with badgers. Do not ask me why. Maybe I read The Wind in the Willows when I was really young, and I was like, Mr. Badger seems like a good dude. He's got his head and shoulders. Mr. Toad, that guy is up. I don't like him. He's uppity. I don't know. Maybe it was the animals of Farthing Woods. I don't know. Badger was a wise old guy in that, but I've always had this fascination and obsession with badgers. And when they said we need to come up with a game, I came up with a game concept that Mike, who did the art, there's still some of it in my emails.
You had the poster?
That was Revolt Youth. That was a different one, where I also named a character Badger. But then previous to that, the first game concept I sent to Mike was for bearded barbarian badgers versus Nazi bunnies. And there's some beautiful concept art that's still in my email. And Mike went, okay, maybe we'll do something else first. So, but since then, I named a character Badger, a bunch of stuff. It kept queue up. We'll cut to September 2015, and me and you were on our second project together. Iris.
Yeah, which was for a 48-hour film competition in Dublin. And I had always wanted to do one, but I didn't feel up to that point that I had like a team that was kind of capable, that I could trust for 48 hours that we could get it all done. So after we had done the Three Don'ts, and I'd worked with Paddy and I'd worked with Aaron, and I'd worked with Fiach on Blue Dawn.
And Nikki, obviously.
And Nikki is my sister. She was in the makeup. And Lisa, I'd worked with her on Please Forgive Me. I finally felt like I had a team of people that I could bring together, and I was like, in 48 hours, I know we could create something great. So I reached out to Paddy and I was like, look, if you're not doing anything this weekend, there's a 48-hour film competition. I want to get you and Aaron and Brian down, and I'm going to get Fiach and Lisa and Nikki to do makeup.
Did Mike do audio? He did. That was my first time meeting Mike Joyce.
Yes, Mike. Mike did the audio as well.
That was my first time meeting and falling in love with Mike Joyce.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And,
Come back to us, Mike.
So I basically reached out and was like, I'm putting together this team, so they want us to register.
Band together.
Yeah, and they want us to register a team. And I was like, okay. It's like, so it was like, I don't really have a team name. If you guys want to throw out any suggestions. And before I had finished, Paddy was like, we should be the Furious Badgers. But the way the 48-hour film competition works, so
you don't know what genre it is.
Yeah, so you can't prepare a script in advance, because then they're like, you could have shot it in advance as well. Like,
right.
So what they do is they give you a specific genre of film to make.
Item.
A specific item, a line of dialogue.
Character name.
Profession. And you have to fit all of these into your script. So that's how they can prove that you made it within the 48 hours. So I was like, but Paddy, what if we get a drama? I don't want to have like a drama presented by Furious Badgers or whatever. I was like, okay, so I was like, I'll leave it open. I was like, anybody else got any suggestions? A day or two goes by. I was like, I really need to submit the name today, so literally anything else. And nobody came back to me, and I was like, fine, Furious Badgers it is. So submitted under the name Furious Badgers. We made the film, which I still think is, I'm really proud of that Iris.
Movie. And I think it was the first time that on a set we all started to, we weren't Celtic Badgers yet, but it was the first time we all started to call each other Badgers. You know, like, we're the Badgers, you know, that kind of mentality. And I think that was when we started to realise that we could turn that into a community, you know. So that was where I thought, I think when we rapped, we were literally like, we are the Badgers. And I was like, this feels like something that could stick.
Yeah.
I like that, though, in your Facebook comments, you would always refer to Badgers. You always talked about referred to
Badger Cubs, Badger Fam.
Badger this. And I thought that was great. I really liked that.
Yeah, and that was something we kind of touched on yesterday. It was like, when we go out and we make a film and we work with someone we haven't worked with before, if we like, oh, we really like them, it's like they match with us, it's like we immediately consider them Badgers.
Yeah, they're like, you're a Badger.
Yeah. They're not part of the core team. Yeah. Like, I'm like, if I work with them again, it's like, I consider them a Badger.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how we build our team.
And even some people that we've never worked with, I mean, I consider Kelly Wrong a Badger. You know,
100%.
Because she's such an incredible supporter of what we do that I'm like, you know, yeah, of course you're a Badger. Like, you help us so much. But then to kind of finish up on that story, at Christmas, Barry messaged me out of the blue and said, I know you don't have a company, but if you did have one, what would you call it? And did I said Red Hat?
Yeah, at the time, because you still had that little logo as well.
Yeah, but then you were like, okay, but like, I think you said it wouldn't fit on the slate.
No. I messaged you and I was like, so if you hypothetically had a company, what would you call it? And you were like, well, I was going to call it Red Hat Media, but there's this other company in Japan who's like Red Hat Films, and Red Hat.com was taken, or Red Hat Productions was taken. And it's like, so I don't know what I'd call it. And I was like, any other ideas that you might have?
And I just literally plucked it out of thin air, because I'd worked. The only reason Celtic came into mind is because like that year I'd worked with Andy on stuff, and like the Scottish-Irish connection, Celtic. I think On Banshee was floating around my head at that time as well. So I was very in a Celtic mythos state of mind, and so it was like, the Badgers was still there, of course, because I can't get rid of it. It's my spirit animal. And so it was like Celtic Badger. I said Celtic Badger Films.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you brought me the slate as a present in January, it said Celtic Badger Media, and you went, "Oh, I'm so sorry, it was supposed to be films." And I was like, "This is so much better.
Yeah.
This is so much better. I'm so glad you didn't write what I said." And I do love that you put director Paddy Murphy instead of Paddy.
In my own little cheeky thing, I printed director Paddy Murphy and DOP Barry Fahey on the actual
fantastic.
slate. So I was like, just so you know, it's like, this is essentially an engagement ring for filmmakers. It's like, every film that you direct, you have to give me the DOP.
That's not a have to. That's a given.
Well, I was going to say too that when I connected with Patty and Patty sent me his information and your logo, I showed that to my guy in the office next to me. He's a good friend of mine, Marvin Jones. He's professor of math, and he's very sarcastic, obnoxious guy, but I like him. He reminds me a lot. Your relationship with Luke, that's kind of my relationship, where we insult each other. We don't have anything good to say about
Is
each
he
other.
of Irish descent as well?
He's claiming it now.
Well,
Then.
if you guys insult each other, you're definitely both Irish descent.
His girlfriend is Irish and proud of it, but
Oh, wow.
he's just starting to come out of the closet, as it were, to admit that he may have some Irish. But he took a look at your logo, and the first thing out of his mouth, "Oh, that's much better than yours." Oh, look at that.
Anytime we mention the logo, I got to give a shout out to Ruth Campion, who was a student of mine at Pulse. We were in class one day, and we knew we needed to get a logo. And I said, Ruth is this amazing artist. She's so good. And I said, it's a badger, but he's got to be kind of like, he's not Irish, he's Celtic. So it's like, maybe he's got a kilt because he's maybe Scottish, Irish. And, they wore the blue paint like Braveheart. And he'd have, I think I originally said an axe, and she tried an axe and it just didn't look as good. But yeah, and she came back to me with this image within like 6 hours or something.
Wow.
And I was just like, I hate talented people.
Yeah.
I love them really. But I mean, I feel like I owe Ruth so much for that image. That's why I always give her a shout out.
Yeah.
She's now working for a really cool video game company in Galway called Howling Hamster.
Nice.
So we've got Celtic Badgers and Howling Hamsters.
I see a collaboration in the works.
But yeah, I mean, this is kind of going off the film stuff and the why you guys are here in that sense. But I mean, I know, Rachel, while you've been here speaking, like you said you've travelled a bit in the last few months and things like that. I mean, so is this kind of like an extension of that almost to some extent?
It is. It's been about 15 years since the last time I was able to travel. Did 2 weeks across Europe and loved it. And this past summer, an opportunity arose for my sister and I to go for 2 weeks to the United Kingdom. And I forgot how much I liked to travel, and it just kind of got back into my blood, and I loved it. And so then I was like, well, I've got the suitcase, I've got the passport. If the opportunity comes, I'm there. And I don't know, there's something just about the beauty that you find when you travel.
Well, another thing I have to add there, when Rachel had come back, she had taken the summer off from teaching, and she was on hiatus for 3 months, but I continued to teach. So we had gone like about 2 months without seeing each other, and I sent her email. I said, I'd like to hear about your trip to England, Wales, and Scotland. Why don't we do lunch? So we met downtown Greenville at a Chinese place, and we had lunch, and as she was showing me these pictures, I said, well, I'm going to go to Ireland probably in October, and there's other people who are going to go with me. Maybe you and your sister would like to come along.
Yeah.
But I really didn't think she was really going to take me up on it. And right away she said, I have a passport. I had what she just said. I have my bag. I'm ready to go.
Excellent.
But all the time I go, I don't know, so back out. I just think that's just too daunting, going over there and meeting Patty and Barry and all these wild Celtic Badgers. But she hung with me the entire time, and
one question actually that springs to mind out of this is that I mean, how did you feel? We had this production has not been without any problems. Something that I try to be very transparent about on this podcast is the issues we face, because I think if any other filmmakers or any other people who are trying to get into creative industry, I think when they hear about stuff that doesn't go right, it's actually usually more helpful than the stuff that's like, oh, everything went perfect and everything was amazing, everything was great. For me, like, how did you feel when you got that message where I said Jessica's not going to be able to make it that weekend?
Devastated, heartbroken, just, oh no.
Me too.
Oh no. No. And you sent me email saying, well, we can recast, but as I read that, I knew you did not want to recast. Mm-hmm. And I really had my heart set on her. And she wanted to do the part, and that to me was very important.
We talked about that part for over a year with Jessica, because we approached her when we were still thinking, okay, we're going to make this as a feature, before I learned a lot more about the industry and how difficult getting it over the line to be a feature really was.
Yeah.
But even when we were discussing that summer 2016, we had Jessica, I had messaged her and said, interested in you for this character, Jenny Brown, in this feature film. And I remember, you remember, that she said, oh, I have these braces. And we said, you went, would it be okay? And I looked into those braces did not exist in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And so we kind of went, we're sorry, we're not going to be able to cast you as Jenny.
Yeah.
And then a year later we were like, guess what, you're cast as Jenny.
Yeah.
And she was like, my braces are off.
Another thing, that she had worked with you guys, and you said she was easy to work with, and I thought that is a huge plus. You know, she, very talented, very lovely person, but I wanted somebody who really wants the part, but who could work with you too.
And I mean, what amazes me with Jess is that, like, on some shoots we have relatively skeleton crew, and we wouldn't, let's say, have a costume designer. We wouldn't have somebody whose specific role was costume design. But Jess, I love, she gets so into it. Straight away when I started talking to her about Jenny, I was like, she wears a green park, and she's like, I don't think she would. And I'm like, okay. What? And she's like, I think she'd wear like a black fur coat. And I was like, you got this. I'm going to step away and let you. Like, her passion for it is so fantastic. It's just so like, but yeah, to kind of bring that back around, it was at Fright Fest in August that, like, you can imagine that we were out drinking, partying, having fun, and then I'm like, I cannot wait for like 20th of October. You over, Martha was. She's like, it was the 20th, really? I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I can't. I thought I could, but I guess not. And I was just like, I think I messaged you that night while still probably slightly inebriated. Just like, just can't do the day.
I remember that. I was shocked. I go, oh no.
Yeah, and then I think it was then I collected myself, like, the next day when I woke up with a hangover. I checked my phone and I was like, oh, I gotta damage control this. We can just shoot our stuff the weekend before, and then we'll shoot.
I got to challenge you on that.
Oh.
I suggested. I said, well, Patty, worst comes to worst, could Rachel and I come over the 22nd or whatever, the 21st, 22nd, and then you could film the rest the following week. But I didn't think you would go for that. You immediately said, yeah, that's actually...
Well, that's why I thought I did.
But now he thinks it's a...
Because I was obviously thinking it while he was...
Because Rachel and I had to come this weekend because our college is closed on Monday and Tuesday. So we thought if we left after our lectures on Thursday, we would be able to squeeze in three days.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get to Ireland. I wanted to meet you. I wanted to do my little part. So I was willing to do that. But I have to admit it, a couple days I even told Rachel that, I would have loved to have been up in the Wicklow Mountains with all those actors and Jessica and the whole crew to see what it's like. But I thought, it might be a long day. As you say, it could be a long day.
You got first-hand experience of how long a day can be yesterday. And that was a half day, and you were also acting. So you kind of... between breaks, you'd kind of come on, you'd do your part, and then move back and forth. Whereas if you're not acting, it's going to be a lot of waiting around, and then watching, and then waiting.
I mean, that is the case. That, like, next week, if you were here, I think you could possibly have kind of sucked for you, because it would be like, you would probably be a ball of excitement, and you would probably be running around like, I want to talk to Jess for a minute, and I want to talk to Fia.
You can't do that.
I'd be like, Steve, go away. I've got to keep these guys doing it. You know what I mean? So I think it probably is for the best. But in saying that, I hope that when we get the opportunity to have like a premiere or whatever, that like it would be great to have everybody who's in it together.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Also, I thought for me too would be more comfortable with a smaller group. That's why I asked you yesterday, and the fewer people actually made me feel better. I knew you were going to be there, Rachel and Barry, but I had no idea, like the sound and all that.
It was really funny for me, and it's just because I mean, obviously, I'm only doing this 2.5 years now, but it's just from learning stuff over those 2.5 years. It was just really funny when I said, "Oh, we're gonna have like Luke on sound, and we're gonna have Brian O'Regan on AC, and we're gonna have Aaron on BTS video." And I remember you saying, "Oh, big crew," and I was like, "No!" And it's like the most skeleton crew we've had in so long. But you know what? As I said yesterday, I love skeleton crew shoots. I love them because it's so much easier to see what's happening everywhere. It's, you know, I mean, you know, the expression "the forest for the trees" or whatever. I mean, to take that into a literal thing, like if you were looking and there was like, you were trying to see something in the distance and there was 5 trees there, you could peek around it and see what was actually happening. If you fill it out with like 30 trees and you can't really see past them, that's what it's like when you have so many people and you're like, I just need to speak with, oh God. And that's why you have heads of department on a large shoot. Because on a large shoot, I can't speak to all the makeup artists, or I can't speak to camera department in full. Like I can't. I'll come to you and I'll be like, I need you to relay this to camera department, and I'll go to Bex and I'll be like, I need you to relay this to makeup. So the bigger the shoot gets, the less in control of it you are. So I love those shoots like yesterday where I'm just like, yay, 6 people.
Nice.
And we got to work with Robbie yesterday. It was my first time ever working with him. He was fantastic, especially if he supports us on Patreon after he sees this. But even I think he might actually. What's Robbie's surname?
Milton.
No, he doesn't support us on Patreon. He should though.
Yeah.
I was telling you yesterday, Rachel, how shameless I am with this.
Yes.
Rachel gave me a great idea for our next Patreon live stream.
Okay.
So what we do is
game.
we run a live stream where we don't have a set time to finish. What we say is we will stop when we fill our quota.
Okay.
So like pay to shut us up.
Yeah.
Like a marathon,
Yeah. Like as in we will keep going until we reach our pledge amount.
We did that to a certain extent the last time because
Except we kept bringing our goal down.
yeah, I know. we were more willing to sacrifice, but that was because we wanted to release the news about
exactly. About the 3 don'ts.
Hex Media taking on the 3 don'ts.
But it was so funny on that drive. It was like, if we get 80 people to subscribe today, we're going to release this information. And then it was like halfway through, we were like, if we get like 40 people to subscribe, release this information. I said, if we get 15 people to subscribe, I think, what do we do first day? 20?
We got 20. We had lowered it to 20. That was the sacrifice we made. But I think originally our original target was like 50 patrons. And then the base target was 25, and that was for the release of the first audio podcast. And then we were like, we'll swap them. We'll do 25 for the Don'ts News and 50 for the audio podcast. And then we were like, drop it to 20 to release the news.
The worst part of that was that like we really wanted to release that news.
Yeah.
Because people sitting around the table with us didn't know it. Me and Barry knew.
Yeah.
Were we literally the only people at that table? Luke had known.
Yeah, Luke didn't know what we were talking about.
But
When we made the announcement, he was like, oh yeah, Kathy told me.
But the people sitting around the table didn't know, and we just so wanted, because like Tubbs started crying. Tubbs had to walk off because he started crying because the news was so big. Like,
Wow.
but we were so desperate to announce it, but we had really committed to. We were at 19, and it was literally like 1 minute on the clock to when we were supposed to finish, and we were like, I looked at Barry and was like, if we don't hit 20, we're not releasing it. We're not just going, oh, screw it, we'll release the news anyway. You know, and then literally in that last minute, somebody just tipped it over the line.
Yeah, I remember Clara came on and started badgering anyone who was watching live, who was making comments. It was like, you're not a patron. And it was like, you need to subscribe so I can find out what the hell is happening.
There's this guy that supports a lot of our stuff as well, Jason O'Donnell, and he wasn't on the live stream, but I was like, where's Jason O'Donnell? Where is he? He'll definitely back this. It was fun. Love to do one of those live streams again.
Yeah, definitely can. I'm looking at getting more equipment so that we can do multiple cameras, and then we can get someone to actually run
it,
and be able to change angles. In the same way, when we edit this, we can change between the 3 angles, but someone can do it live.
Oh yeah.
Kind of got a question on my mind. It's usually one we save for a little bit later in the show, but kind of want to get it out now.
That's fine. Go for it. This is a lot more loose formatted because, like I said, we don't know you guys as well as we know the rest of the Badgers.
Right.
So we had to kind of structure it so that we had like stuff to stay on topic, or else we would kind of get thrown off.
Yeah, it's just kind of a good rule of podcasts is to not get too tangent driven. But you need tangents in a podcast as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess the question I have, which is, it's such a horrible question, and every time people ask it and stuff, I'm like, oh, I'd hate to be asked that, but I always ask it anyway, which is, do you have like a specific like favorite film like of all time? Or, and I know it's always like, and even if it doesn't have to be, you know, the one, but something that definitely stands out in your mind as something that you're like very, very fond of.
1962, I went and saw a movie called The 300 Spartans. And I absolutely loved that movie. I was just so enamored with it, you know, the bright red uniform. But it shocked me because at the end of the film, the Spartans actually lose to the Persians. And I was stunned because the good guys are supposed to win.
Yeah.
But I was such a stupid kid. A week later, I went to the movies to see it again, thinking the Spartans would win the second time around. I was devastated they lost again. I go, this can't be happening.
How do I change the outcome of this?
But for whatever reason, that movie always caught my attention. And then when the remake came out with Gerard Butler, you know, it was pretty good, but I still liked the first one better. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Cool. I like that.
Well, I have an all-time favorite movie. I grew up watching movies made from the 1930s to the 1950s. I have a love for that particular time. And my absolute favorite is 1940, I want to say 1942, but I could be wrong. And it's called The Major and the Minor. And it had Ray Milland and Ginger Rogers in it. And just... I can't see anybody ever doing a successful remake of this. She is just this, you know, young woman who goes to New York to make it big, but as a backup plan, she saves enough money for a bus fare in an envelope if things don't work out, so she can get home, or train fare. And you come into the movie at the end of that year, and she has just gone from job to job to job, and she's completely disillusioned, and she's like, forget this, I'm going home. She gets to the train station. It was a train. She gets to the train station, and the fares have gone up since she came, and she doesn't have enough for an adult ticket home, and she sees this mom and like 14-year-old girl go by, and you can see the wheels turning. So she goes into the ladies' room and she completely changes her outfit, takes up all her makeup, puts her hair in pigtails, cuts like her sweater up to make knee socks, and she comes back out looking like a 14-year-old girl, pays this pickpocket to buy her a half-fare ticket onto the train, but the conductors on the train don't seem to believe her, and she gets away with it for a little while, but then they catch her smoking out back. They chase her through the train. She ends up in Ray Milland's room, and he's got a lazy eye, so he kind of, for whatever reason, he buys the whole 14-year-old act. And from there, the train gets stuck, and just a whole list of like completely misunderstood scenarios. She has to go with him to clear things up, and it's just fantastic. And she ends up falling in love with him, and it's one of my... I just resonated with me. I could watch it over and over and over and over and over again.
I'm really intrigued now.
It's fantastic.
I don't know. I feel like, particularly with comedy, right? Mm-hmm. The comedy genre, I feel that over time, there's a lot of modern comedies that I don't like. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of contemporary comedies that I just don't find very funny. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because they've lost that classic traditional setup.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because my favourite comedy of all time, it's not quite as probably, I guess it is a classic in its own right, but one of my favourites of all time is Planes, Trains and Automobiles. But yet again, that setup is so, it's what you've just described. It's like, you know, there's definitely a structure for it somewhere. You can look up like a flow chart that is like, you know, this happens and then, you know, he's lumped in with this guy and then they have all these quirky things happen but then there's a heartwarming ending, and you know, or whatever it is. Or like another one was Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which I loved as well. They had this kind of formula to them, but they weren't formulaic. And I just find a lot of more contemporary comedies are just, they're not. There's no setups. It's just randomness.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, what makes the kind of older ones work a lot better is there, like you were saying, there is a formula, but I think they weren't as constricted with time. Like nowadays, they're like, well, this has to happen in the first act, and this has to happen in the second.
And there has to be a joke every 30 seconds.
Yeah, or stuff like that. Whereas the older ones were kind of like, oh well, we'll play this out and we'll see what happens, and if it happens to run to midway through the second act, then we can squeeze more in at the end or whatever.
But even like, I mean, I wouldn't know that many. I'm terrible. I mean, haven't watched enough. Well, I'm trying to change that recently. I've been watching, because I'm a big horror buff. I've been going back and watching like the 1930s Dracula and that stuff, and the old Lon Chaney Wolfman films, you know. But at the same time, I've watched a lot of the Chaplin stuff. And like that, yet again, there was a structure to that stuff, like, you know what I mean, a setup, something that actually worked. Whereas, as I say, I feel like a lot of stuff now it's like, oh, we need a joke every 30 seconds, so there's just some random joke. There is no reason for it. There is no mechanic behind why that happens. It's just, oh, say this and it'll be zany and crazy and funny, and it's like, but when that happens every 30 seconds for 90 minutes, you're like not laughing anymore by the end of it.
Sometimes it might sound funny on the script, but when they say it, it's not as funny. Whereas, like the old comics from the 30s and 40s, the Marx Brothers, the Three Stooges, they were vaudevillians, and they knew the lines that would work and not work. And if they thought it sounded funny and if nobody laughed, well, okay, let's move on. Get rid of it.
But that's because because being vaudevillians, they would play to a live crowd as well. So they would understand how a joke can drop. I think a lot of people now write stuff in a writer's room with their close mates, and all their friends go, that's so funny, and they're like, yay. But it's not, you know, I think that's why stand-up comedy is still so important, because that's how you cut your teeth on actually understanding. If you go out and you say something in tanks with the audience, it's like, oh,
well,
how do I come up from this?
That happened a lot in the script of The Three Don'ts. Like, we wrote some lines that we thought were hilarious, and then when they were delivered, it's like, oh, it wasn't as funny as I thought it would be. And then there were certain lines that we didn't write to be funny, but the way they were delivered or the situation.
Or the ad-libs. Like, my favourite ad-lib in the entire Three Don'ts is Nathan's one. 16 minutes and 54 seconds into the film.
Subtitles.
I've been doing a subtitle transcription. But he says a line in that moment that he just said off the top of his head, and every single time we do a screening, the place erupts, and we were asked to cut that line.
Yeah, I remember that. And every single screening
I fought that corner. It was like I picked my battles very carefully on the Three Don'ts, on which lines matter, which arcs mattered, and if I couldn't justify it, I wouldn't fight it. You know, I'd go, well, that's fair, no problem. But this one particular line, I just remember being like, I said, look, every single time we've ever done screening, that has gotten a huge reaction. And he was like, well, okay. And then yet again we did the test screening in May, and the place erupted again. And it like that. It was on set. We didn't explode laughing at that. I mean, I think we laughed, but we didn't like think it was the funniest thing ever or anything. But then when you see it in the cinema, and you laugh. My favourite is Nick's comment about the Three Don'ts, which is that he was like, I couldn't understand anything that anyone was saying, but I was just laughing because everybody else was laughing. That's pretty
it's
good.
funny because I actually felt pretty similar about Please Forgive Me.
But that's just comedy and horror so close.
Well, yeah, that's because it's
you're setting up a setup for a punchline.
Yeah, and Please Forgive Me was a film that I made actually in my mother's house, the same house, but it was I wanted to do like a film that was all one continuous take, like we were talking about. So I wanted to have a reason for it to be one continuous take, because I'm a big believer of if the camera doesn't have to be moving, if there isn't a reason for it to be moving, it should focus on just the story that's playing out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I need to give it a reason to be moving, and if it's all going to be one take, it has to play out in real time. So I was like, what's worth playing out in real time? I was like, okay, well, a horror movie would be pretty unnerving in real time, you know, to have that thriller aspect of like, you're completely trapped in this moment, you can't go anywhere. So I completely forgot where I was going with this.
I don't know.
But watching it with an audience, and because it was one take, we played it out, and I was like, oh, that was really good. I was like, I really enjoyed that. And then the more I watched it, I was like, I don't know if
this gets the impact.
Yeah, and then the first time I played it for a little cinema in Galway, we played it for the Halloween special one year, and there was gasps. There were people going like, no, don't go in there, and you know, there was this crowd atmosphere that rallied behind it, and I was like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. You know, I still love Please Forgive Me. I love everything about like that weekend and stuff, and it was cool to see that like what I thought would work actually did when I watched it with an audience, even though I didn't feel that way myself. But I guess that was because we had done so many rehearsals and stuff like that. So,
but I mean, similar to when we saw Retribution and Horrorthon, and the big impactful scene in Retribution, that like there was people going, Jesus, or how did they do that, or like gasping, and like genuinely, it was great just sitting there and kind of being like. It was the same in Vancouver Badass. People cheered in Vancouver Badass, which I was like, I think when you get to the end of this, you're going to regret that. They're like, whoa, this is violent, yeah. I was like, wait for that mirror to come up and look at yourself in the reflection, buddy.
Patty, I wanted to ask you a question. I've been dying to ask you.
No.
Role reversal.
I've been meaning to ask you. One of the funny things is, this is a movie that we're doing about the Beatles, the British Beatles, who have their own unique Liverpool accent. It's not standard British accent, but their Liverpudlian accent. Now, this is written by an American who doesn't really know that accent that well, so when I was writing it, it was more my imagination of how they talked, and sometimes they were sounding to me like pirates, you know, from pirate movies, or is this too much of an Irish accent? Okay, and then anyways, a couple years ago at the college I'm at, I had my friend Dan Robbins. He's the theater guy, and he had his cast do a stage reading, and it was funny because they all gave different accents to it. Like one girl was pure American interpretation of the Irish accent. Another person had more like a Scottish accent. Another person didn't even try to have an accent. One person had a very upper class accent for Ringo, and Ringo would not sound that way.
No, because he sounds like Thomas the Tank Engine.
And one of my
tank engine, he thanks people.
And only one out of the whole cast actually had what I thought this could pass as a Scouse accent. Yeah. And that was the kid who auditioned for Dave.
Oh, yeah, Dave was very good. If I could have flown Dave out next weekend, I would have. I just don't have the money, but like he was very, very good. And also because he was auditioning for the role of George, and in this short, George doesn't have any lines, so it would have been overkill to bring him in. It was a shame. He gave him a really, really good self-tape. Like I was very, very impressed with him.
So how are your actors going to do the Scouse accent? Are you just going to go with kind of a mild Beatle accent?
Oh, it was going to be so sarcastic there. I hate being Irish. My brain went straight to like a sarcastic. My brain went straight to, well, what's going to happen is they're going to act right. No, but that's pure Irish dry humour. Honestly, so far, Mikey, who's playing Paul, did his audition self-tape in Liverpudlian accent, and Mikey has researched Paul McCartney like crazy. Same with Owen when he did his tape and he sent a voice recording. We're closer to Liverpool here. I've known a lot of Liverpudlian people. When I was working in Malta, weirdly enough, like about 4 of the people in my team in the bank were from Liverpool. I think, I'm not going to I can do a Liverpool accent, but I'm not going to do it now because my throat's messed up. Future podcast, keep tuning in. You'll get me. I'll come in my full shell tracksuit and do my like Scouser.
We'll do it when we're filming the podcast at TX next week.
Oh, perfect.
Nice.
But yeah, like it's. I think we've watched a lot of. Yeah, it's an accent that's a lot closer to here. That I think people like Mikey, people like. I mean, the only two actors in it that need Scouse accents per se are John and Paul. Because Squire Clancy, I get the impression that he's not necessarily from Liverpool. He could be from anywhere. He's talking about Ireland, the home country.
He's part pirate.
He is definitely he's part Viking. He's majoritively Viking, actually. I never, as you know, I try not to write roles for people anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, Squire Clancy's in your book, but when I wrote the short screenplay, I couldn't help but write it as Graham. There's a point where, as I say in it, it's like the man leans across the bar with his gummy maw and like his beard and his hair, and all I could see in my head in that moment was Graham Gill just giving a big smile, and I was like, that would, to a guy who had never been to that side of the world, would be the scariest thing ever. I love Graham. I cannot wait to work with him again.
Same.
But yeah, I think Jenny, yet again, I mean, this is where it gets interesting, I guess. From my perspective, directing the film, I yet again don't believe that it's a requirement that Ginny be Scouse. I believe she could be. She's going to college, or like the art college in Liverpool, but I'm like, it's not a requirement that she. Now, in saying that, I know Jess can do a Liverpool accent, so there's no issue with that. But it's like, I don't know if she needs to have one, because something I've always said with intervention, it's always better to have a variety of accents in something. Yeah. Because that's what real life is like. You know, I think so many times people say, oh, I want this to feel like it's set here, so I'm going to just like this. It's an Australian accent. But like, if you go to Australia, if you go to Sydney, like you meet 7 people as you walk down the street, and I guarantee they've all got probably different. This guy's from the UK, that guy's from, you know, wherever. This person's from the US, that person, you know. So I think it always makes it feel more like a real world setup when people, you know, would say John and Paul have Liverpool accents because they're young fellas growing up in Liverpool. Al has a Chicago accent. Squire Clancy sounds like he could be from the East Coast. Ginny sounds like she's from the Midlands. You know, it's like this is a living, breathing place. But yeah, and because I know that Mikey and Owen are going to nail the accents, I'm not worried.
Well, when I was writing the story, I didn't want it to get too thick, you know, the accent, or if you made it, because I'm envisioning American people watching, people who are fans of the Beatles, and they know the Beatles were British, they were from Liverpool, but if you talked exactly the way the Beatles talked, you know, or the people in Liverpool talked, nobody would understand. We would have to have subtitle, so the accent had to be more implied. Yeah.
I mean, I would, from an actor's perspective, I think that's quite difficult, because if you're playing Paul McCartney, you don't want to play a diluted Paul McCartney. Yeah. You know what I mean? You want to watch every interview with Paul McCartney and get his inflections down and get his, as I say with Mikey, little things like the eyebrow movement, as subtle as those things are. I think from an actor's perspective, it's quite hard to say, I want you to be this character, but I want you to like make it more accessible. I agree. Because then you end up with a far and away situation where you have Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman going, "Alright, Jays, oh Moira." Which I prefer actually how you say it. I prefer Moira.
Myra?
Yeah.
Or Mora. I think I was saying it about 5 different ways. And then
I liked Myra best.
Myra, and then Rachel goes, Steve, no. And she would give me another lesson. If you did. I go, why couldn't she be called Nora? I can say Nora.
It's an interesting one though. I mean, I think they have to sound like the Beatles for fans, you know. And I mean, everything gets subtitled now anyway. As in, it's not mandatory, but you can turn them on if you want them, or off if you don't.
Yeah, it's like you said. You know, if fans watch it, if they see a diluted version, they're going to be like, "Oh, well, he doesn't really sound like John."
Yeah,
like, he might kind of look like him, but he doesn't sound like him. So,
what was the film I watched recently with Aaron Johnston played a young John Lennon? I cannot think of the name of the film now. Oh God, it's going to do my head in.
Look at me, I'm a beetle.
No.
Did they have Boy in it? Like
Yes.
Mystery Boy or something like that?
Yeah, well,
Nowhere Boy.
Nowhere Boy.
Yeah, that's it.
Aaron Johnston played him in that. And one of my major criticisms with it was, I was like, Aaron Johnston's accent is not convincing. Like, and so it pulled me out of the movie. Like, I couldn't enjoy it the same way. Whereas when I watched, this is how it happens, I guess. When I watched Walk the Line, it was like, God, he sounds like Johnny Cash. Like, that is Johnny Cash. Like, that is him. Where, you know, and then in Nowhere Boy, I was like Aaron Johnston is like, he's a thick American accent. It comes through in lines, and you're like, oh, that's not. It's breaking the illusion, you know. Because that's all films are, I guess. Really, at the end of the day. Yeah, that's all I got to say on that, I guess. Damn, that was weird getting the tables turned. And now it's time for everyone's favourite part of our podcast. Random things.
We really need to figure out what the notes are for those.
We need a guitar lick. That's the obvious thing.
Evan, get working on it. You're a patron, you'll see it.
Yeah, actually, he's a good patron. Thanks, buddy. So, who goes first, guys? You always decide.
Stephen, you go first.
I don't know. I have my touchdown card for my haircuts. I get my haircut. Well, for me, it's more of a trip down memory lane to go to the barber. And to make me feel better, they just clip the scissors over my head. They'll tell me once in a while, looks like you're growing more back here.
I appreciate it.
But anyway.
So it's like one of those,
if I go 6 times, the 7th time, I'll get half off.
Nice.
But I only get maybe 1 haircut a year, so it's going to take me 6 years.
It's
going to take me a long time.
Do you ever find, I don't know, I'm terrible, I get those, but I lose them. Like for coffee shops, for wherever, I get those cards, and then I lose them. But then I'm lucky enough that like Badger and Dodo, which is the coffee shop near college, I will bring in 6 of them that all have different amounts on them, and I'll be like, I do kind of have one completed card amongst these 5 cards. And they'll be like, okay, and they'll take the 5 of them. And
what I like about this is it's laid out like a ticket for a gate, for
a ball game.
Yeah.
Sport Clips Haircuts, section VIP, row A, seat 2.
The barbers all dress like referees from American football.
Oh no, that is awesome.
And they have sports regalia all over the place,
That's
pennants and stuff.
It's very cool.
This guy looks so happy to be getting his haircut.
Well, I get
This
a
guy's
haircut.
getting smothered with towels.
Yeah. That's how they go.
This looks like a scene from a horror film. So, if you live in South Carolina and you're looking for, a haircut, check out Touchdown.
I'll mention that you mentioned in the cast.
And then
maybe
tell them to sign up to Patreon.
they might give you a free haircut too.
Excellent.
Well, they give me a haircut and a shampoo. Now the shampoo takes a lot longer than my haircut.
That's great. That is definitely one of the most random.
That
random
is,
things
I think, so far the
today.
randomest thing.
For sure.
That's fantastic.
Your common cold was pretty random as well.
Yeah. That was
Shoe fly, don't bother me. Did you do it again?
No.
Oh.
I did it once, and it was on the
live
one
stream.
I'm editing.
Is it?
I just finished. Yeah. That I snatched him out of the air, and I was like,
Oh.
"Gone!" It's like Bruce Lee.
So who's up next?
You want to go next? Go for it.
It's a deck of cards.
Oh, are they signed?
They
Okay.
are signed, actually.
To Bill?
From Bill.
From
A guy named Bill Williamson. Well, it's not his name, that's his character's name. His name was Steve J. Palmer. He's from California. He's a voice actor and an actor, and he did the voice of Bill Williamson in Red Dead Redemption, which is a really, really cool game. And they're just a really cool set of playing cards that I never want to play with because they're like a collector's item. So I'm like, oh, these are so cool, but I'll never actually play a game of cards with them. But yeah, I love the art on them and stuff. I think they're really cool.
Wow.
So there you go. And Steve Palmer is a great. After this happened, I won a prize on a website for a bunch of signed stuff from the game, and I added him on Facebook. and he's messaged me on and off, and we've become relatively close and stuff. And he's
well, they are actually Red Dead Redemption cards.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I had loads of signed Red Dead Redemption stuff, but that's all that remains.
Oh.
Because when I moved to Malta, I lost about 80% or 90% of my personal goods.
Yeah.
Because I had no storage to keep it stuff in, so I just had to sell everything. But yeah, Steve Palmer is an interesting dude. We talk. He does a lot of extra work in Hollywood, and he's on a lot of shows. You see him in background characters in shows and stuff. So I learned a lot from him about like how hard it is being an extras actor in Hollywood.
I don't imagine.
These are kind of scary though.
Oh yeah.
Skeleton.
Oh yeah.
They look almost like tarot cards. Is it tarot cards?
Oh, they're not tarot cards, no. But yeah.
Can you tell fortunes with cards? Or?
Me? No. I can't do anything.
One of the girls who works in Fashion's place sublets one of the rooms as a clairvoyant.
Yes. Is that the third floor?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw some of her paintings.
Yeah, she
They're
does
pretty
a lot
amazing.
of she does aura paintings and stuff for people.
Really?
Yeah.
What is considered a good aura?
Vashon said I had a nice aura.
Yeah.
She said my aura is yellow.
Everyone in this room has good auras.
Which?
Yeah.
Oh, good to know.
Good feeling. Good vibes. Like, I'm very much of my girlfriend Vashon, who you guys met last night.
Yeah, very nice.
And was on. She was a guest on podcast just before this.
Yeah, she can do like aura readings and that sort of stuff, and it was only when I started bringing her out to meet my family first that she like, the dowsing rods that people use to find water and stuff like that. You can use that to find the edge of someone's aura and see like how far it reaches. And you'd be surprised, like you essentially have like a bubble around you that is where your energy field is, and that's why in my opinion, I know nothing about this, but in my opinion, when you're hanging out with someone and you're sitting as close as we are now, it's like you get a good vibe from them. It's like, well, technically you're sitting in my aura, I'm sitting in your aura.
Yeah.
You can vibe off each other from that. And
Or like last night when you were out at the hotel and you've sensed bad aura.
Oh yeah.
That's another, because the aura's touching. It's like, no, I don't like this. This is not so good.
That's why I was glad when we didn't get it.
Yeah.
Something freaked me out, and I kind of pushed. Did you don't remember that?
I noticed. Yeah, I noticed him,
There's
not
this dude,
Steven.
kind of a skeezy dude.
He just kind of like
He actually
standing
loves-
back around, and like I'm always aware. Like I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like,
He actually made a move for you at that point. From this angle, that's why I kind of pushed you forward and got there. And then I was looking in the mirror, and the guy just kept on looking at Rachel, and then I kind
And
of
I came back and said, "You're not staying here," and you were like, "Yes."
Like that's.
He was not Irish, though.
He was no, but I'm not going to say what.
Yeah, but I could tell by the accent he was not Irish, so I didn't want that to direct or any way impact
Americans.
But I didn't want to.
Sorry, he was Canadian. Sorry. No, when Vashon read my aura when I went in for my treatment in May, she was like, "Oh, you have like a yellow aura," and she was like, "Oh, your aura is, it's lovely, it's really good," and she was like, "But she was like, one of your biggest problems is that you," and this hit so hard at that time in May. She was like, "You care more about other people." Like about ensuring that other people are well and healthy and safe than you do about yourself. And at that time I was like, "Oh, stop. You're in my head, get out of my head."
Like and that's something that she really enforces is like whenever she does those aura readings, that's not like necessarily who you are, it's how things are at that moment.
Right now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Specifically
yeah.
now.
Like,
and that really hit home.
Like from knowing people, like when because auras are essentially the colour of the rainbow. And each colour represents a different emotion and stuff like that. So they will have varying amounts of those colours depending on what you're feeling at that moment. But like when you know what the colours mean, like I can tell that Paddy's like aura would be quite yellow because of who he is and because I know of who Paddy is. And but when she does the readings, it may be a case that if Paddy's not having a good time, he won't feel as happy, so there'll be a lot less
tinge
yellow.
of, and she was saying that you can have people with two auras, that they're actually clashing with each other and all this kind of stuff. We really can't have it. This is a tension. This right here.
Yeah.
This is tension.
But she felt last night it was good aura all around the table.
And even you had mentioned it actually at the house. You were like, it feels good here.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And
And you were saying it was haunted.
I never said it was by like a bad
Okay,
ghost.
cool. Good spirited
Yeah,
ghost.
good
That's
spirit.
coming 2020 Celtic Badger Media.
Good spirited ghost.
Yeah.
I'd watch that show.
I would so watch it. If it was a kids movie, even better. You're up next, Bez.
I'm next. Okay, cool. This is my friend. This is the.
I've seen him before.
The little husky puppy who stays in the front of my car.
Yeah.
His name is Jean-Claude Van Dog.
I love it.
And he's my in-car security system.
Yeah.
So nobody steals my car because I always have a dog in the car. A lot of people have asked me, does it work? I'm like, still have the car. You can't say it doesn't work.
Do you think it's because you have a dog in the car, or do you think it's because his name is Jean-Claude Van Dog?
I don't know.
I think it's the same.
It's a combination.
I think so. I think if I was about to open that door and next thing it was like, I'm Jean-Claude Van Dog, I'd be like, whoa, I'm sorry.
My bad.
My bad.
But when Vachin's brother was studying in Sweden, or Finland, sorry. He was studying in Finland, and it was around the time we were talking about like potentially moving in together and that sort of stuff. And we were like, we both agreed that if we were to get a dog, we wanted a husky.
Finland.
So she went over to visit him, and she was gone for the guts of 2 weeks. And when she came back, she brought me
Jean-Claude.
So ever since she came back from Finland, that must be 4 years, 3 or 4 years anyway, and he's lived in the front of my car since.
I feel like he needs a special collar, engraved with his name.
With Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
You can actually tell his paws have been frayed because of where he
been
sits.
sitting.
He sits in like
The little-
behind the sat nav, just peering out over the edge. But he's travelled with me since he's come back, and I like him. I think his ears have started to turn green with because they're always getting the sun. They used to be black. You can see they're black on this side.
While you're talking about like little dogs, Stitch fell madly in love with Stephen this morning.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and he was like, Stephen was like, yay, she's so lovely, and then what Stitch is like for going for the tongue. And so Steve was like,
She likes to French kiss.
I said, not on Sunday morning. Not on Sunday morning. No.
It's a holy day.
But she really, I was saying that, I mean, you remember Stitch when we got Marty, Stitch was just energy. You couldn't stop her. She was just running, jumping, whatever. The first time I'd seen her ever mellow out was Nick Vince. She just sat on Nick's lap and she just went to sleep, and I was like, how did you do that? Now, since Marty came into those, she's a bit more mellow in general because she's just constantly being annoyed by this little white thing.
Yeah, she likes the rest.
Yeah, but like that, I just walked in I was at the back having a cigarette, and I walked in and Stitch is just asleep on Steve's leg. She wasn't asleep, she was like peering up. And like her eyes were doing that thing she does where she's like, they're closing stuff. And I was just like, she likes you a lot.
We had a quiet moment together.
Yeah, you had a meditative space.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was like, what's interesting? I'm like, well, I could talk about my boots because I've been talking about them all weekend. But I pulled 2 things out of my wallet. So
these are the best random things because they're actually 100% random.
Yeah. So this is my sister's business card, which I just carry around because I'm super proud of her. So she works at a museum. Awesome. She's been in the museum industry
experience manager.
Yes. She's been in the museum industry for almost 10 years? No, 12 years, something like that. Even in grad school. No, she's not a curator. She handles more like visitor experience. Yeah. She's shifted since that into more of like database coordinator, really handling memberships, things like that. But she just loves being a part of that kind of museum atmosphere.
Can I ask a question? Because this just only dawned on me upon seeing that. Like, so your sister and you both moved to South Carolina?
We did. We both, when we graduated high school, we moved to go to school in South Carolina.
Cool.
And then we had nothing else to do after our undergrad, so we thought, well, we'll just do grad school. And Becca's job in grad school turned into a full-time position at not this museum, but another one. And then that one closed down just recently, and almost right away, this museum said, "Hey, we want you."
Oh,
so yeah, it was really
cool
neat.
when you're at that stature that you're able to be headhunted.
I think it's so cool that you're so proud of yourself, because
I'm biased, and I think she's the best thing in the entire world. So I just get so proud of it. Proud of her.
Really, I mean, I feel that way a lot with my brother. I mean, like, because I know my brother had a very hard road to begin with, and that over the years, like, he's really there's like a sandstorm. Just to let you guys know.
My goodness.
Oh, there's a guy washing my car. It's like power hose.
Oh, that's Jerry.
If he wants to wash the car,
Yeah, it's cool. But no, like that with my brother, I mean, when he moved to China and started his own business and everything, and I was like, at 27, this guy had nothing, and at 40, he's like made such an amazing life for himself. But it's just, I just love when that happens. You just have that sense of pride.
Yeah.
When I invited Rachel to come to Ireland, I actually said, well, you and Becca. And I thought, well, we have twins. I don't know how we work that into the film, but that would be kind of a fun thing. And
what we do is we basically we shoot, we just cut between the two of them.
Wait, how did her hair get shorter?
Those hair is slightly darker now.
The first time I actually met Rachel's sister Becca, Rachel and I were doing a presentation together with a couple other people about films. There were 4 of us. We all had a 15-minute segment. We were setting up our mic and the whole bit, and all of a sudden her sister came walking down the aisle, and I looked up, and I knew she had a sister, twin sister, identical twin sister, but it just startled me. It did. It just, where's this coming from? And then when I heard her speak exactly like Rachel.
Yeah, we do sound exactly
alike. Do you have like the twin connection?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We say the same thing at the exact same time a lot. It's like in stereo, and it's not planned. It's just the same thing pops out.
It's amazing.
So,
because as I say, those close mates, and that I really respect in Canada, the Solskjaer sisters, they direct together, and they say that they probably couldn't with anybody else, but just because it's like a psychic link. They're just they've got it down to a fine art.
Yeah. We understand. I mean, I know there's that you with certain people you have that know what they're thinking, but there's just a whole conversation. Yes. Yeah, and it's just you don't have to say anything, but with even just a slight look, it's you know exactly what's being said, and we kind of balance each other out. She's my buffer and I'm her buffer. So
because you guys would have grown up, was there any major rows? Because now hearing you talk about it, you're so proud. I was like, was there fights and stuff when you were younger, or? Oh yeah,
we don't fight often,
but when we do,
and it builds up to and we respond off of each other. Yeah. Like one is upset about something, and the other one tries to be understanding, and the other one is just in a bad mood, and so the other one's now in a bad mood, and it builds and it builds, and it used to climax at one of us saying the other one's full name, blah blah blah, no. Rebecca, and there'd be a pause, and then we just start laughing, and the argument was over. Just like that. They're never, if we do argue, they don't last very
serious.
Long.
Yeah.
And then it's over with, and we're back
the
to...
full name thing is something I remember when I was in school, that teachers would know. Funny, interesting fact here about me is that my birth cert says Paddy Murphy. It doesn't say Patrick Murphy. Now, Paddy is an abbreviation of Patrick, but my birth cert says Paddy Murphy because my grandfather's name was Paddy Murphy, and he passed away the year I was born. My mother named me after my grandfather, so I am very much so. embrace that. And when people call me Patrick, it definitely grates. It definitely irks. So when I was in school, there were certain teachers that would always go, Patrick Murphy, and I would be like, oh, like clenching the teeth, like,
It's not my name.
And Kathy will do it every. Sometimes if Kathy's very angry and wants inside a reaction, it would be like Patrick Murphy. I'm like, you feel the hair standing on your neck, like. But you see, I do it to her, so I can't say it's one side. I go Kathleen Murphy, and she'd be like, I will end you. If I want to be really bad, I'll throw in the middle name, which I'm not going to do here.
I'm glad that you're Patty, because everybody that I talk to in the States, I always refer to you as Patty now, and everybody knows who Patty is. And people who never will meet you, when they talk to me in conversation, they'll bring up, well, what does Patty think about it? Or, be sure to bring this up with Patty. You're Patty there.
I love that you were like, as you brought up, the night Paddy Murphy died.
Yeah.
It's this famous song, Irish anthem.
Well, I said to one of my friends, Bobby Lee.
Oh yeah,
and
one of our colleagues.
I told her, I'm connected with this guy in Ireland by the name of Paddy Murphy. Oh, no way, that's not his real name. Isn't that a song, The Night Paddy Murphy Died?
I can't remember who it was, but on set or something, I introduced you to someone, and I was like, oh, this is Paddy Murphy. And he was like, really? You're Irish and your name is Paddy Murphy? And he's like, yeah. It's like, that's like, you might as well just be John Smith. Like,
that's my go-to joke, as you've known, because I used to say it all the time. I've dialed back, and it's all I'm allowed one here. Is that like my parents didn't even just sign? They didn't even put a name on my birth cert. They just take the box for like default stereotype.
Default Irish.
Yeah, like as I said to you guys the other day as well, I always feel resentful that I wasn't born with like full head of red hair and freckles. I feel like I only got half of the Paddy Murphy experience. There was a convention in Waterford 2 years ago that on LinkedIn, LinkedIn.
Yes.
I got an invite on LinkedIn, and it was like, we're having an event in Waterford where we're trying to get as many Paddy Murphys from around the world into one convention hall. Wow. And I was like, I feel like this is like a serial killer who's trying to get rid of all Paddy Murphys.
There can only be one.
And so they was like, oh, so if you want to come, please come. And I was like, I'm busy that weekend.
For my own safety.
I think half of the Irish pubs in the Bronx are probably Paddy Murphy.
Everywhere I go abroad, there's always a Murphy's pub or a Paddy's pub. And I'll take either. And then I'll go in there and I'll order either Murphy's Stout or Paddy's whiskey.
Well, a couple months ago, our president, not to get into politics, but he made a reference to the paddy wagon. And then all these Irish American societies got up in arms about it, indignant, because in the old days, do you know what a paddy wagon is?
Well, I remember that, I know, see, in America, was it for specifically,
for collecting the drunks.
The drunks, yeah.
Drunk
and a derogatory term for Irish back in those days were paddies.
Yeah.
And the paddies were the ones who were mostly getting arrested for
I've
drunkenness.
embraced it. So I'm taking it back and reclaiming it.
So they call it the paddy wagon. So they called it the paddy wagon for many years, but I don't think anybody used the expression.
It's funny here, like we would, if you see
it's
a
actually
van,
the van with the riot shield.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, there's a paddy wagon going by just there, like a police van.
Yeah, the small cars are like squad cars, and then when you go into the van, that's the paddy wagon.
But as I was saying to you, I was explaining that saying "take the mick," take the mick out of yourself, because I was saying that describes Irish people perfectly, in my opinion. So self-deprecating and all the rest of it. But I looked into it recently, and it is like mick was a derogatory term for Irish people. So to take the mick out of yourself was to kind of reclaim the word and make it,
interesting.
Because that's what we do. If you ever need a lesson in Irish wit, just watch Black Books starring Dylan Moore.
Oh yeah, sure.
That show.
That is to me everything that needs to be said about Irish humour. That and Father Ted together.
You said you had something else?
Oh, yeah, I couldn't decide. So, I mean, this is my sentimental. This is my super random. It's something I've kept in my wallet from several years ago. I got pulled over because I was going too fast on a road. And, I in my defense, I thought I was only going 5 over, and I was actually 10. So, anyway, but he stopped me, and he just gave me a warning. So I put it in my wallet, because I'm very much like, follow the rules, do this. And I kept it in my wallet as, like, a reminder. But didn't do me any good this summer.
I've never seen one of these. I got a parking fine when I was in LA, but I've never seen a speed warning.
This was my speed warning, and it worked as a reminder until this summer, and
when you got
and I got a ticket this summer for the first time. I'm going to say this
out loud because this is something that you're going to find just as funny. There's a tag in here on the form for race or ethnicity, and it's just W for white. I swear to God, I'm literally looking at it right now.
Yeah.
On the left side there, in red up top.
Red. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh.
That's mad. You would not see that in a.
I don't know if you would see that anymore now.
We're same year as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring that
83?
up.
1983?
You were born on the same day.
I knew that.
We have the same birthday.
Oh my God! You guys were born on the exact same day.
I didn't know we were the. I didn't know we were the same year. There we go.
Because we found out in the car last night.
Yes.
We were driving back and we were talking and we said, I was like, oh, my birthday's the 31st and the 12th. And then,
no way.
No way. No. But I didn't peg the same year. I thought you were way younger than me.
I get that a lot. I look a lot younger than I actually am.
I knew you were both the same age, but I was not going to say that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Related. Oh, wow. God, that's crazy. No,
we should look up times.
We need to work out time difference because you said what,
9:56 a.m.
Okay. 12. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been.
No, it wouldn't have been close.
That's still no.
Because there's what, 6 hour time difference.
Yeah,
whatever.
5 or 6. Yeah.
So that would have been about 2:00 in the afternoon here. What time were you born?
12 noon.
Mm-hmm.
So you missed each other by 2 hours.
You're about 2 hours older.
Yeah.
2 hours older than her.
So now
he has seniors.
Respect your elders.
I actually call this a Rachel perk because whenever I go out to eat with Rachel, she always gets these little extra niceties that I don't get. So I tease her about these Rachel perks, and she doesn't believe it. She told me the story, and I go, "You got a warning." I probably would have ended up in handcuffs.
Well,
or up against the car.
That perk didn't work this summer, unfortunately.
Bat those pretty brown eyes.
I did. I don't even know how fast I was going, but all of a sudden there's the lights in the back of my car. I had zoned out. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden there's these flashing lights, and for a minute I was like, "Oh wait, those are for me." Oh, I had to pull over, and yeah, it was just.
I had an incident like that where I was driving to Cork. I was driving the road down to Cork, and next thing I had my music up really loud, really loud, and I think it was like metal, right?
Oh no!
So I was blaring this, and I was like jamming out in the car, and next thing I was paying attention to my surroundings, but obviously not enough because I didn't see that there was like a car behind me, like firing lights, right, and sirens and stuff. And next thing, I kind of looked to my right, and this cop car just winged up alongside me, and the guy was like. And I was like, and I turned the music down, like I heard the sirens, and was like, oh crap, and like rolled my window down. And I was like, I'm obviously in so much trouble right now. And the guy, I rolled my window down, and the man was like, I was gonna swear here just to prepare you. He was like, move into the fucking left, because he was trying to get by me.
Oh.
He was on like a chase. And I was like, I think I literally drove practically into the ditch. I was just so panicked. I was just but yeah, he took off like lightning, and I was like, that was terrifying. I'm never going to listen to my music that loud again.
We had a moment on the way back from... We went to the cinema. Me, Bachin, my brother Jason, and my sister Nikki. All four of us decided we'd go out to the cinema. We went bowling or whatever. And when we were coming back, it was about 12, maybe between 11 and 12. And just as we came into Loughrea, there's like a little roundabout. Mm-hmm. And we were laughing and joking. It was like, oh, roundabouts are so much fun. So we went around the roundabout, because it was so late at night. We went around it about 3 times. Just because...
That's a federal offence.
It's not. It was like we couldn't decide which way we wanted to go. Whatever. Mm-hmm. And as we came around it the 3rd time, someone was coming up to the roundabout. So I was like, because there was no one around, we went around, but now that someone was coming, we decided we'd carry on and we moved into town. And then the car came up along behind us. And I was like, wouldn't it be so funny if that was the cops? And then we started joking. We were like, because Vashin, who you met last night, is very slim and very slender. Mm-hmm. We were like, she's obviously pregnant. We were in a rush. And we were laughing and joking about this, and then all of a sudden, woo!
No.
It was an unmarked squad car.
Oh.
And I was like, it actually is the cops. This is like, what happened? So we just pulled in, and they came up and he rolled down the window. It was an undercover drug squad car.
And they knew you made the 3
Because
zones.
they watched me go around the roundabout. They were like, this guy's either drunk, stoned, he's on something. Mm-hmm. He literally came in, flashed the light in my eyes, like, what were you doing? It's like, oh, we're just coming back from the cinema. It's like,
we went to have fun on the roundabout.
In the back of my head, it was like, don't say she's obviously pregnant, because that's not going to end well for anybody. But yeah, we just chatted to him. It was just like, yeah, we just came back from a roundabout. It was like, we wanted to go to Supermax, but then we changed our mind, and we were going to go here, and then we just decided to go home. And he was like, that's fine. It's like, don't do it again. I was like, okay. But it was that whole laughing and joking. It was like, imagine that was the cops. Oh. And then it was like, woo! It's almost like comedic timing.
I'm so glad that didn't happen. Similarly, if when we were working on the 3 Don'ts, we had 2 fake... In my first car, one of the car that we had at the start of the shoot, there was 2 fake dead bodies in the boot of it.
Yeah.
And because we were shooting it over a couple of weeks... they were there for like 4 weeks, and one of them was Dalmatian. Half, like the upper half, the bottom half was a pair of jeans and a pair of boots and socks that were stuffed with stuff to make them stay in position. But then his upper torso was a large Dalmatian teddy with a jacket on. So if you looked in and you were like, well, look at this dead body, and you like opened the hood, it would just be like a Dalmatian's face looking out at you.
It's like that horse head when you pull back the blanket.
But we one day I collected Brian Clancy in town. We pulled up outside somewhere. Brian was like, can I throw my stuff in your boot? And I was like, yeah. And I forgot, and I like popped the boot, and there's like 2 dead bodies in there. And he's like, oh, crap, they're in there. I'll just stick in the back seat. But right as this is happening, I'm like trying to close the boot down, but like the leg is hanging out. And I'm like closing it on the leg. And there's a woman getting out of her car behind me, and she's like petrified. And I'm like, oh, no. And she just like gets in her car and like speeds off, and I'm like, Brian, we need to get out of here now, like now.
We need to move.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was an interesting phase.
I thought you were going to talk about when we were filming the archway scene.
And the guards
showed up.
They thought we were poaching fish.
Yeah, they thought we were doing whatever it was. There's a small alleyway that we filmed in. It's like a little bridge by a river. And we had our own light and everything. And we were just there. We were there a while, and someone had obviously told the cops we were there, because they came down and they pulled up and they're like, "What are you doing, lads?" Brian at the time had
having a party.
Are you having a party? So they obviously thought we had like beers or whatever down there, and we were like, "Oh no!" It's like, we're shooting a film. It's like, here's the camera, and it's like, this is all. Brian had like big black eye. He was like, "Oh, but this is all makeup," and they were like, "Oh, okay." It's like, just
I wasn't there for that one. I'd gone back in to collect someone. And then 1 year, pretty much almost
a year to the day, we were back doing reshoots in that same alleyway, and the cops came back again, and it was the same cop, and he turned and he looked at us and he was like, "Are you still making that film?" Like, yeah.
I think we feel like that as well, man.
Yeah, seriously. Like, yeah, we had to do some reshoots and whatever, and he's like, will you ever get it finished? I was like, we hope so.
And at that point, there was 4 fake bricks of cocaine sitting on top of something.
It was on my car, the roof of my car.
They were just flour packaged up, but it was like, I was like, he didn't even get out to check. Like,
yeah,
it's just flour.
yeah, that was pretty funny.
What kind of time are you at, Baz? 'Cause
We are at 1 hour 57.
oh wow, guys, we're going to start winding down soon. It always goes so fast. You don't
I
think
know,
it
yeah.
does.
It's good though.
Actually, one very quick thing is, I mean, you guys, this is something we normally ask at the top of the show. It's kind of interesting. We've dropped it the other. Actually, it's for me and you as well. This will be our last thing, and then we're going to do our Patreon shout-outs. But is there anything in the last couple of weeks or months or whatever that you know what I'm talking about? Topics.
Yeah, topics.
So basically, like a movie or book or band, a piece of music, whatever, something that you've been like really into, like you know, something you read that. How do I?
It's just something that you've like
you'd
seen
recommend
or
to
heard,
people.
yeah, that you want to recommend, you want to talk about, that you're like, oh, that was really good, or something you enjoyed.
Something I discovered on Facebook with a guy by the name of Shane Fergal, and I think Fergal is the Irish variation of my last name, Farrell. So I hooked up with him at Facebook, and he's a musician, and he plays, I think he's a regular someplace on the continent, maybe Germany, and he puts his music up online, and he's absolutely great. He doesn't do the traditional Irish music. He reminds me a lot of the stuff that your cousin does.
Oh, Evan.
Yeah, kind of, with
A
the
bit of
acoustic.
kind of a rock twang.
Yeah,
twang,
and
you know.
just absolutely fantastic. Really have enjoyed it.
Awesome.
I'll try to. I would like you to connect with him on Facebook.
And definitely, I
think
mean, if
it's
you can
interesting.
find a link, even if you send it, we can hopefully add it to the description of the podcast so people can check him out.
Well, I'd have to say it's a musician you introduced us to yesterday.
Damn it, I was going to do her this.
Oh.
You're all good, go for it.
No, I just, I'm not familiar with a lot of British, Scottish, Irish artists, and so it was kind of neat to hear.
That was Emma Langford.
Emma Langford, yes. So I haven't gotten to look her up yet and like look and see what I can get, but I was just blown away. That
so
was
unbelievably
incredible voice,
talented.
and yeah.
Rachel said flawless yesterday, and I thought,
Flawless.
What a
Yeah.
good word to
Really,
use. Yeah.
so
Have you heard
distinct.
Closed Book yet?
No, not yet.
Oh my god, we're going to listen to that after the podcast over. You've got to hear it. It's so good, man. I mean, you've heard Seduction of Eve, obviously, because it was in the Don'ts.
It's in the 3 Don'ts, yeah.
Which I told the story when we talked about MA,
Yeah.
how nervous I was. Like, compared to, I think more than approaching Tristan, more than approaching, and these other people, I was so nervous approaching Emma, and I just didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then remember I messaged you like right after, I'm like, she was so cool, and she was so cool with it, and we have the song in the film. But her song Closed Book is her new one is it's like a power ballad, or I don't know.
Nice.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
Emma Langford, Quiet Giant, available now.
You want to go next?
Oh no, I need to think of something else.
I stole yours. I'm sorry.
Just because it was kind of silly, me and Vashan just recently watched Moana, the Disney movie with the Rock.
The Rock. And,
Yeah, it was really funny because it was just one of those ones that we were like, because Vashan and my sister, they love the Disney movies.
Yeah.
And it was
I
just
can empathise.
one. Yeah, I can't fault them. Like they are what they are. It's like a Jason Statham movie. You know exactly what you're going to get when you go in, but you're still going to enjoy the ride.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just funny to see The Rock playing like such an arrogant character who was beaten down and had all of his magic stolen from him, and been like, yes, it was like the gods have delivered me a boat. It was like, no, I crash landed here. It was like, but the gods want me to do this. It was like, no, I want you to do this. And it was just like everything that he was like, the gods have requested this. It was like, no, that's not at all what's happening here. It was just very funny to see because he plays like a demigod who loses his fishhook that gives him all these magical abilities. And it was just really funny to see that. And like all Disney movies, it was a nice roller coaster. And
Always. And the animation's stunning, Moana.
the animation is amazing. Some of the water
The water effects are the best I've
some
ever
of the
seen.
best I've ever seen. But the whole arc of like, oh, so you're a princess. And I was like, no, I'm not a princess. I'm the chief's daughter. It's like, same thing. It's nice to see like
Disney kind of poking fun at
the kind of Disney princess trope.
Yeah.
And the first one you actually see it in is Frozen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I met this guy and I fell in love with him. It's like, you want to
Just
marry the
met-
guy you
just
just met?
met, yeah.
It's like, it was funny to see
They,
that.
they've done that really well a lot lately.
Yeah, they really modernized.
My favorite Disney movie of the last couple of years, and I didn't watch it when it came out. I had no hype for it. It wasn't until much later, and me and Piper sat down and watched it, and then it's become one of my, I would say, my top 5 movies of all time.
Oh wow!
Is Zootopia.
Zootopia is fantastic.
Zootopia blew my mind because it was like, it was this seriously deep movie with like a crazy message, but it was not forcing that on you. You could just watch it and be like, this was fun.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to dig deeper, there's so much there. And I love Patrick Bateman anyway.
Yeah.
And just that was amazing.
Yeah, she was a fierce bunny.
Yeah, she was amazing. That bunny is the best. She reminds me of Fashion.
Yeah.
It's like she's a bunny, but she'd kick your ass.
Yeah, right.
My pick was going to be Emma Lang for Quiet Giant. So I've had to dig deep.
I mean, you get 2 shout-outs.
Thanks, Emma.
Well, you were born on the same day, so you're thinking a lot alike. You
man.
really are.
Patty's your unidentical twin.
Unidentical twin.
He's the third, the triplet.
I'm going to go with something that I did watch 2 days ago here in the office. I subscribe to Shudder, which is a Netflix style service, but it's all horror stuff, and apparently I like horror stuff. I didn't know about this until
Someone
yesterday.
told me that. I didn't believe it.
But I watched a film called Digging Up the Marrow, and it's found footage, which is something I'm not usually very big into, because I'm always like, found footage is one of those things where it's like, what's the reason?
Yeah.
And like, you know, first question I will ask in a found footage film is like, why is he still recording? Do you know?
Yeah.
But it's really clever because it's kind of meta. It's about Adam Green, who, you know, he's a filmmaker, and it's very meta because it's Adam Green playing himself, and he meets a guy who's played by Ray Wise, who's one of my favorite character actors ever. He was in Twin Peaks and Reaper and a bunch of other stuff, and this guy Decker tells him under like basically only a couple of 100 meters under the earth, there's this place called the Marrow where all these monsters live. And he's like, this guy's crazy. This guy. So it's a documentary where he's like talking about this guy Decker who's crazy, and then he starts to like the monsters are coming out of the Marrow, and he's catching them on film. But there's this brilliant scene that you'd enjoy where he brings Kane Hodder in to watch the footage. He's like, we caught a real monster on film, like, and I know he doesn't say that. He brings him in first, and Kane Hodder sits down, and they like show the clip. And he's like, "It's good work. It's good work. Who did this?" And he's like, "It's not a makeup effect. It's a monster." And he's like, "Yeah, but like which production house? Masters of Horror, or you know?" And he's like, "No, this is real. And he's like, I don't get what kind of bit are you doing, Adam? Like, what is this? And like, I question. I'm like, did they not actually? Was that scene shot where they did just bring Kane Hodder in and try and convince him that this was real?
That's so funny.
But I love anything that's meta like that as well. And I looked at the budget; it was $12,000.
It's pretty modest.
It's pretty modest, and it's really good. It's just another example of something you can do if it's clever, if there's a good idea behind it, and you get Ray Wise on board.
Yeah.
That's my top pick for this week.
Cool.
Other than Emma Lang for Quiet Giant.
I'm gonna mute that.
Yes, good job.
Cool. So, you wanna do the patrons, and then we'll thank our guests.
Yeah. First of all, do you guys have anything you'd like to say before I go off on a big tangent about our amazing patrons?
Just glad to be here in Ireland. I never thought this would ever come to realization. Here it is. I'm in Limerick, Ireland, with Barry, Patty, and my colleague and friend Rachel. It's unbelievable. It's like a dream.
So happy you're here.
Yeah, I just feel like the last couple of days I'm living in a dream, so I wanted to savor every moment.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you.
And Rachel?
Thank you.
I'm so grateful to have been here and met you all. Like the kindness and hospitality, and just y'all are great people to work with. So thanks for letting me come along. And
thank you.
This has been such an enjoyable trip, really.
I'm smiling uncontrollably because she said y'all.
I know.
Yeah, did I?
I didn't want to point it out, but I was like, it was there, right?
And I'm not originally from the South, so.
It was just like, as soon as you said it, I was like smiling away. I was like, on the footage, if I don't say it, it's going to look like I'm just smiling dementedly. I know, I had to explain it. Yeah, it's because you said y'all. That's so cute.
But like I said yesterday, it's such a shame that you live thousands of miles away, because we would definitely more than gladly have you on board for future projects.
I think
that would be.
Keeping along with the theme, you guys are definitely badgers.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Definitely
Rachel, we are
badgers.
badgers.
Yeah.
And just a quick, that leads me into a nice little segue into some other badgers that need to be thanked. So we apologise that on the previous podcast we didn't really do this. We're figuring this stuff out week to week. So now we're finally at a point where we do have our badgers listed, our patrons who are kind enough to be donating at least $7 a month, some more than that, some less than that, who don't get a shout out. But if they do want a shout out, they can upgrade their pledge.
They need to go to at least $7 a month.
So first of all, Aisling Healy, who's wonderful. Aisling's a huge supporter.
Aisling!
Second is Stephen McGuan.
Scooby!
This is what we're going to do, and I love it. Will Putt.
What? I'm just mimicking Aaron from the live stream.
Oh no!
Will Putt.
Kelly Round.
Kelly!
Hashtag 11. That's what she likes to be called.
Hashtag 11?
Yeah, because she was the 11th patron. Jade Murphy.
Jade?
Yeah, my cousin.
Jade Murphy.
Who can be seen in the Mandy music video. And Nicholas Berman Vince.
The Chatterer.
Orla.
This is going to be great to cut back and forth.
It's going to be amazing, right? Orla Brennan.
The bear.
She is a bear.
We need nicknames for all our patrons, so this.
Oh, this is going to be a good one then. Brian Fay.
Daddy.
Abel.
You didn't get to meet Dad because he was on a golf trip.
Abel Garcia Cordina.
Which one do you want me to try?
Abel.
Abel.
You guys met Abel. He's one of my students.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool.
Robert Novak. I think it's Novak. N-O-W-A-K.
I'll sing with Robert. I can do that one. Robert.
Oh, one of your favourite people is up next. Clara White.
Clara was an actress in a short film that I directed called Doors.
Oh, okay.
That premiered just the week before in Cork.
Okay.
Our next badger is a very, very charitable badger. He's been very good to us. Greg Orsi.
Greg is an absolute legend.
He came over from New York to help out on one of Nick's shoots.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic, fantastic guy. Evan Murphy. Figure it out.
We can figure it out.
And then this last one, I don't know if you know them, Vashan Gill.
Heard of her. That's my missus.
Guys, I need to just say it again. Thank you so much. Like, at the moment, we are currently sitting at $218 a month, which is 27 patrons. Every single one of those patrons we value so much, because like every single cent that we get goes towards keeping this place, keeping this office, being able to do this as much as we can. And without, and as we said, if we can move that higher, if we can get to 300, we're going to be doing a minimum of 3 to 4 shorts a year, which you guys are going to get to see first. We're going to be doing a fortnightly web series, a sketch show, which Barry has been having amazing ideas for, and you can find out what those amazing ideas are if we can just get it a bit more over the line.
Tell all your friends, become patrons. Tell them to become part of this exclusive group that we have, that we post exclusive stuff to Patreon regularly. So.
There are stills from yesterday's shoot that as soon as Robbie sends them to me, they're going exclusively out to patrons.
Robbie actually messaged me when he got home. He was like, I know I'm supposed to be going for dinner with my girlfriend for my birthday. It's like, but I really want to edit these stills. I'm so excited to be working on them. So
Like I'm sure I'll be sending you them, but a lot of those stills will be exclusive to patrons because these people have been so incredibly generous and good to us.
Yeah.
And look, I've said it before and I'll say it again one more time. Whatever you can donate. Like I know we joke about like, oh, if you were paying $7, but like if you're like, well, like look, I can definitely guarantee that I have $1 a month that I can pay.
Yeah.
There is still content that we will put out there even for that tier, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was just about to say. Is that like even if it is the smaller tier, or even if it's just a minimum, you still get exclusive access to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, the more that you put in, the more perks you will get. But I mean, just to be part of that
direct
club,
involvement you get.
Yeah, and to be included in that group that we have, just for us, is pretty cool.
And we love you.
We do, every one of you.
Especially the people over 7.
It's like every time you say that, I'm going to cut to me, and it's just like.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap this up because we got to go sightseeing.
Yeah.
We're going to Bunratty Castle and then we're going to go to Killaloo.
All right.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Our pleasure.
We really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it because it's not an easy journey. It's a long way to go. So we do appreciate the time you spent coming over, and more importantly, the time you spent with us. So
loved every minute of it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. So with that, that's another episode of Badger Banter in the can. So what's going to happen right now is this really kick-ass music that Barry found on Artlist is going to start playing. No.
Oh, damn it.
Now.
No, I'm editing. Now.